This arc really exposes Light as pure sadistic evil. And I admit, in the beginning I was kind of pulling for him like some kind of edgelord hero. But I'm over that now, and I just want to see him get his comeuppance. So, let's talk about it. So this stretch of episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8, well, they start off with Light's manipulation of Ray Pimper. Because he's talking to him after the bus crash, and Ray kind of confides in Light, and he tells him that he's on a mission, and Light agrees to keep that mission a secret, and this manipulation of Ray has Ray convinced that Light is not Kira. So he's being manipulated there to the point where Light probably could have left the poor guy alone, but of course Light didn't do that because Light is not a good guy. And then not long after that, when Ray gets home, they introduce his fiancée, who's this character that I really thought was going to be something significant. I thought she was going to be this mystery piece, this monkey wrench thrown into affairs because she's given up her job at the FBI. She's no longer working in law enforcement or as a detective. And I also kind of wonder, why did she give up her job for this knucklehead? From what I see briefly in this first encounter between the two of them, she seems like the better detective than Ray Pimper does, but she gave up her job, he's keeping the job, and I really thought this is going to be a significant character the way she was introduced. I mean, episode 5 is still early enough in the series that significant characters can be introduced, and I thought maybe she was going to be one of those. But in the train station, when Light sort of corners Pimper, that's when we really see this transition where Light has gone from killing criminals, like despicable criminals, to killing petty thieves or people who are merely accused of being a criminal. And more importantly, this is when he transitions from trying to maybe create his own kind of godlike justice. He goes from that to attacking anyone who makes him feel threatened, or attacking anyone that he needs to manipulate someone who makes him feel threatened. And we really do see Light's descent in full effect here in the train station. One thing we see as he starts to confront Ray Pimper, still has his face hidden, he's from behind, so Ray doesn't know that it's Light. Even though he does recognize the voice, he can't quite place it. But we see that Light appears to be willing to kill Pimper's loved ones, or the loved ones of his adversaries. Like he says, if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to kill the people you care about. I'll kill your family, your friends. And that goes way beyond being some kind of god of justice who serves out cold justice to build a utopia where all the evil people are dead and other people are afraid to be evil because of the consequences. No, he goes beyond that to where he's going to kill innocent people just to get his way, just to win this bizarre contest he's having with his adversaries. And it's really in all of this that in my eyes and in my mind, and maybe other people reach this conclusion sooner, but it's really here in episode 5, particularly at the train station, where I start to see that Light is going from this dark, bloody, like I said before, edgelord, vigilante, anti-hero, to being a true villain, to being somebody who I think needs to be stopped. It all happens here. I don't see anything that I can kind of pull for or root for in this character at this point. There is no sympathy in me for Light at this point. There's no part of me that wants Light to succeed in his goals at this point. And he really does cross that line here in episode 5. He builds on it in 6 and 7. By 8, it's a foregone conclusion, but he really just pushes so far across that line from anti-hero or dark, bloody vigilante or misguided want-to-be hero. There's no illusion that he has any interest in doing the right thing anymore. There's no illusion of him wanting to make the world a better place. He's completely just wanting to prove that he's better than everybody else and to kill anyone and everyone he needs to win a game that only exists in his mind. And in the train station, something else that really disgusts me is he tells Pimper, if you don't do what I'm asking you to do, I'm going to kill your fiancé. And even when you're dealing with devils and really evil entities in fantasy books and in stories, they do sometimes have this moral code. You make a deal with the devil keeps that deal. Now, the devil may not keep it in a way you think he's going to, but you make a deal with the devil or with the demon or with some evil entity, they do keep their end of the bargain. You just come to regret having ever made that bargain. But here, with Light, he's not even lawful evil like that. Like, he says, do this, or I'm going to kill your fiance. But then, as we know, in a couple of episodes, he goes ahead and he kills her anyway. So Pimper kept up his side of the bargain, and Light didn't. It shows, like, if there wasn't enough in his motivation being evil, the very fact that he can't even be trusted when he uses that leverage against you, there's no reason for anyone to want to help Light in any way or to want Light to succeed in any way unless you yourself are sadistic. And if so, I'm glad you're getting it out by watching anime and not killing people in the real world. So good for you, I guess. But it's not just that what he does is evil, but it feels so sadistic to betray Pimper the way he does with his fiance. Also, he concocts a method where Pimper has to kill his colleagues with his own hand. I mean, he slides the death note down behind like that folder with the cutouts in it. Pimper's looking at the photos on the internet that his director sends to him, and he's writing the names in the blanks on the death note, forcing him to sort of being blindfolded, put the knife in his hand and saying, stab this person. Then you take the blindfold off and you realize you stabbed your best friend or your coworker or somebody that you cared about. That is just a sadistic step that may have been unnecessary, and it really, really got me just all knotted up in the stomach and so unhappy with Light and so eager to see something bad happen to Light sooner, hopefully, rather than later. And then also something that was pointed out to me, I think, in the comments, something I didn't catch on the first go around myself, but whoever uses the death note, well, they can never go to, like, heaven. You know, they're stuck in this limbo in the afterlife or whatever. So Pimper has been denied. Not only has he been forced to be complicit in the murder of his own colleagues to save the life of his fiancée, who gets killed by Light anyway, not only has he done all that, but unbeknownst to him, by writing in the death note and using the death note, now he's denied any kind of satisfaction in afterlife. At least if I'm interpreting those info cards that they've given us in this series correctly, and if the comment, I'm interpreting that correctly, it just keeps getting worse and worse for Pimper. He got nothing out of this. He did all these awful things, and he's at least not even going to have any kind of joyful reunification with those he cares about in his afterlife, because he's denied that too by being unknowingly a user of the death note. And then after all of this, Light proceeds to kill Pimper, and there's no nobility in this at all. Pimper is afraid to expose Light. Pimper doesn't know who Light is. He's probably so frightened of Kira, he's never going to pursue him because he wants to keep his loved ones and his fiancée safe. So there was no need to kill him here. And then, not only does he feel like he has to kill Pimper in this moment, but he can't just kill him and walk away and be satisfied that his adversary is defeated. He has to let people know when they die that he's the one who did it. He has to let them know his identity before they drop dead. And this is purely ego-driven. This accomplishes nothing. This is like that serial killer's drive to taunt the police and to play games with the authorities. It is 100% sadistic, psychopathic, sociopathic behavior coming out of Light here, that he can't be satisfied just to kill Pimper. He also has to let him know that he's the one who did it. When Pimper did nothing particular or personal against Light, he just had a job to follow this guy because he was with the FBI looking for a serial killer. So if he feels he needs to take him off the board for his own safety, well, I can't get behind that, but I can understand that. I think he was able to take Pimper off the board without killing him, yet he went ahead and killed him, and as he's dying, he had to let him know, I'm the one who did it. Ha, you made a mistake by trusting me. Just making sure that the last thoughts in his mind are those of regret and agony and pain, and then he has no afterlife to look forward to. And when I start to see how sadistic Light can be and how obsessed he is with taking Pimper off the board and what lengths he will go to and who he will threaten in order to win this game, I wonder if Light is actually prepared to kill his own father in pursuit of this obsession of his with the Death Note. Like, I'm seeing a Light who seems to be totally detached from humanity, to have no sympathy, to be totally incapable of empathy, like a true antisocial personality disorder I'm seeing here in Light. And I wonder if he even feels any kind of relationship to his father, or if his father is just another bag of meat out there that he can write in the Death Note if that's what he needs to do to follow through with his obsession. I think that Light is prepared to kill his own father. Now, some of you probably already know the answer to that because you've already seen the series, but I really feel like he is prepared at this point. Nothing is beyond what he's capable of, and killing his father, of course, falls under what he's capable of, in my opinion. At least it's a good question to ask at this point, because they do kind of seem on a collision course during this 4-episode series. But then on the other side of things, I feel like I've gotten to know Light a lot better, but everybody seems to get to know L a lot better in this episode arc, these 4 episodes, because he reveals his identity to what's left of the task force. He weeds them down, I think, to only 6 people that he trusts or something like that. And I wonder, like, what is the purpose of L revealing his identity? Now, first off, I guess it's to help us see, in a lot of ways, sort of a mirror reflection of Light, because they're alike in a lot of ways, and Light feels this need to reveal his identity before he kills people. I guess L is feeling this need to reveal his identity before he helps people stop Kira. And also, it's to build trust, because he's asking these people in this task force to have a whole lot of trust in him. So revealing his face, I won't say his whole identity, but he reveals his face to them. I think that is to get them to trust in him and to get him to feel like he can trust them a little bit, or he has no choice but to trust them perhaps. So I think it's a good exercise. That's how the story lays it out, is it's to build trust. But I still wonder if there's a little bit more to it, because multiple times in this 4-episode arc, people point out how much Light reminds them of Elle, the fiancé in particular. And I think Elle even points out how much he has in common with Light, and how they're both childish and competitive, and how Light feels like a version of Elle who's just a few years younger. But Elle also asks people to call him Ryuzaki instead of Elle now. And I don't think for a moment that Ryuzaki is his real name, but maybe it is. Maybe this is part of a trap that he's laying down, because if someone betrays the name Ryuzaki, then it's a way he can catch who it was that betrayed him or something like that. Maybe it's to protect the L moniker, so if someone does overhear one of these police officers talking to him and they call him L, they'll say, oh, that's the infamous L, or the famous L. But if they talk to Ryuzaki, well, Ryuzaki's just some other guy with a whole lot of hair who walks around barefoot and sits funny on chairs. But maybe it's to protect the L moniker, maybe it's to lay down a trap of some sort, maybe, but probably not. It could even be a real name, or maybe that name means something that I don't understand, or something that will be revealed later. But he does ask people to call him Ryuzaki going forward. But because of how similar Light and L seem to be, at least in their brain patterns, or the way L seems to be able to think the way that Light does, well, L clearly understands Light's need to kill. He talks about if they hide the identity of murderers, then Light will start to kill innocent people. Light will start to kill, or Kira is what he's calling him here. But he understands Kira has this need to kill. He is a serial killer and a sociopath at heart. So if he's going to kill, they should at least allow him to kill, I guess, folks who are destined to go on death row, or maybe should be killed anyway, even though he's already proven that he goes beyond proven guilty, or even beyond major crimes. Simply being accused of lesser crimes seems to be enough now to get Light to go all Kira on people. And I do have to say, like I mentioned before, boy, I had high hopes for that fiancé. I thought she was going to be like a third arm in this chess match that was being played. I totally overread that character, because she does not stick around very long. She also doesn't prove to be very effectual at all. But I really thought this was going to be that wild card thrown into the mix, somebody that wouldn't be on Light's radar at all, somebody that wouldn't even necessarily be on L's radar. But no, she runs into Light right away, and she gets fooled by him. Not initially. I mean, she has her defenses up initially, but Light was in the police headquarters. The receptionist talked to him about helping him out with other cases. They talk a little bit about the Kira case. So there were reasons why she could be tricked into having trust in him. But at first, she has her defenses up. After some conversation and some trickery and a little bit of creepy, stalkery behavior, he does get her to show her his ID. He does eventually get her name, and he makes the decision. Of course, he's made the decision when he has her fake name, and we have a little bit of fun when it doesn't work. And in that scene, when Light is walking down the street, walking down the sidewalk, going through crosswalks and everything with the fiancé, we see the imagery, the art, the screen goes into this high contrast, mostly black and white, particularly like this crosswalk where we just see black and white bars in the background. And that high contrast imagery that's shown on the screen sort of shows to me sort of a nonverbal cue communicating us the way that Light sees the world is in this black and white. And he has his own perverse, rigid morality. And everything is either white or black, light or not light. Everything either deserves to live or deserves to die. And I think as time goes on, those black bars in between the thin white lines are going to get wider and wider. And of course, this rigid morality is a way that can turn wannabe heroes into villainous characters. This rigid morality is the reason that Rorschach became a fascist in Watchmen. Or you could even say the same thing about Big Daddy in Mark Miller's Kick-Ass series. And it is that rigid morality, no room for understanding, no room for a gray area that can really turn somebody who thinks of themselves as a hero into a very, very, very dangerous villain. But once again, just like with Pimper, when it comes to his fiancée, it's not enough to Light to simply kill her, to just eliminate the threat. He has to let her know it's him as she's dying. He has to have this power trip. This, once again, the only word that comes to mind is this perverse need to have a feeling of power over people and to let them know that it is you who has that power over them, to sort of make fun of them, to belittle them, to rub it in their face as they're dying, to put salt in their wounds. That power trip that he goes on twice in this 4-episode arc really, really makes him disgusting to me and makes it so difficult for me to want to see anything other than bad things happen to Light from here on out. But on a more positive note, we do find out that Watari is an elderly butler, which is kind of funny. You know, I didn't expect Mr. Belvedere to pop up here. It's got kind of that Alfred Batman dynamic, as a lot of people pointed out in the comments, that, let's see, eventually Ryuzaki, maybe that's Japanese for Bruce Wayne, I don't know. But he's like this guy that seems this mysterious noir character on the street hiding in the shadows, and he turns out to be this elderly butler who throws a nice little ice cream party for all the task force and giving everybody multiple scoops of ice cream in their ice cream cones. For some reason, Watari is quickly becoming maybe my favorite character in this show so far, along with Ryuk perhaps. Watari's the one guy here that I don't think has any bad psychopathology pouring out on the screen so far. We also learn about this addictive nature of apples, and the fact that I think Ryuk says apples to a Shinigami are like cigarettes and booze to a human. So now we find out that he will go through withdrawals if Ryuk doesn't get the apples. So suddenly, for the rest of this series, apples are going to be this leverage, or leverage if you prefer, that Light has over Ryuk. Because up to this point, we haven't seen any way for Light to manipulate Ryuk. But now that he's got this apple thing to hold over his head, well, he uses it to get Ryuk to sniff out all the surveillance cameras that are hidden around Light's bedroom and in Light's apartment building. But I feel like we haven't seen the last of this technique of withholding apples from Ryuk to get Ryuk to do something for Light. So that makes Light even more dangerous, and maybe it's going to let Ryuk see how sadistic Light is. Like, Ryuk was along to have some fun by watching this psychopath have his way with the Death Note, but when suddenly the psychopath starts manipulating you, Ryuk, maybe it won't be so much fun anymore. And of course, when the house is under surveillance, in a scene that I can understand why it's been famous, and lots of the folks in comments and so forth have told me this was a largely famous a scene when he's watching the tiny TV, and we get, with the tiny television watching, the most dramatic eating of a potato chip in television, cinematic, or anime history. And believe me, it is a dramatic eating of a potato chip that, as the comments said to me also, much more dramatic in the dub than in the sub. So I recommend, if nothing else, you watch him eat that potato chip in the dub, because it's like ridiculous fun there. But he does have the little tiny television just when, you know, I thought maybe they had him hemmed in. They definitely thought they had him hemmed in. They thought the surveillance would prove who Kira was, because they would see the person watching television, writing on the Death Note. Well, he finds a way to make his Death Note look like homework, hide the television in his potato chip bag, still kill people just to get them off the scent. But of course, L is a little too smart for that. L thinks things look just a little too perfect in the Yagami household, and I think L is going to figure this all out. But also, when he's done with this little ordeal to try to throw people off of his track while the surveillance is going on, well, then Light throws the television out with the regular trash. It's still inside the potato chip bag, I think. Throws it out. He even stands on his balcony and watches the garbage truck pick it up and take it away. And I wonder if maybe this is what is going to prove to be Light's misstep. Because I think if I were really, really suspicious like Elle seems to be, if I thought things were a little too perfect on the surveillance film of the Yagami household, well, I would search that trash. Or I would have Watari, my friendly elderly butler, go search that trash and then bring home some Ben & Jerry's after he's done. But let's imagine they do find that crushed up television, the tiny little television in a potato chip bag. Wouldn't that kind of mean that the whole play is up? Wouldn't that be the red arrow? Wouldn't that be the red flag that would prove enough, at least, to Elle that Light is the one who's guilty, and to lead to this confrontation that I think Elle would get the better end of than Light, in my own opinion? So I don't know if that will be his tragic misstep, or not tragic actually, but if that will be his misstep, his fatal flaw that causes him to be discovered or not. But it's just a thought I had when I was watching that little TV get crushed up and taken away in the garbage truck. But regardless of what the misstep is or how Light screws up and gets caught, I need to see Light pay. And I want to know, am I going to get to see Light pay soon? Like, is it going to happen soon? Some bad things need to start happening to Light. And when the bad things happen, it can't just be as simple as he gets caught, handcuffed, and taken to jail. Because that is not enough comeuppance. That is not enough penance. That is not enough punishment for what we've already seen Light deliver to the world. And I know we're probably going to see him deliver some more of it before the end of this story. So when it does happen, they can't even just kill him right away. Like, it needs to be drawn out, or else we need to see how miserable he is in limbo in the Shinigami realm or something, because he also can't have any kind of meaningful afterlife. But I really need it to happen big time whenever it does happen. Will it happen soon? I kind of feel like it might start happening soon, but you never know till you watch. And one thing watching this series now, 8 episodes in, has had me start to think about are like stories with an evil protagonist. And I'm sure there's plenty of them out there, but there aren't as many necessarily that I can think of. A few key ones that I can think of is like Mark Lawrence. He's an author that's written this Broken Empire series. The main character in that is despicable. I mean, there is nothing but evil in that main character. Joe Abercrombie writes some characters that you discover are evil as time goes by, but they're so charismatic you never quite hate them, the way I'm hating Light here, or the main character from Mark Lawrence's Broken Empire books. Some more widely recognized characters probably come from cable television or streaming, like Dexter is probably the most famous like serial killer protagonist out there. Hannibal Lecter had his own show, Hannibal, but he wasn't really the protagonist on that. And then of course, You on Netflix, if you've seen that show, I think there's like 3 seasons of that out there now. And he's a stalker and a really, really bad person who is the protagonist and the point of view character on that. And I think now in conversations about shows with an evil protagonist, at least for the first 8 episodes, Light definitely goes to the top of that list for me. And I think that's about all I have to say about these episodes of Death Note. So let me know down in the comments what you thought about this arc, anything you think I might have missed or passed over, and I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you again soon.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. If you might be interested in Patreon perks like early access to videos, uncut reaction videos, ad-free videos, and the opportunity to vote on which anime will be covered in the future, then click on the link in the video description. Thank you.